Everyone, welcome back to the It's the Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade and I am a personal trainer and mindset coach specializing in female-specific training protocols and disordered eating behaviors. So today I wanted to jump on and talk to you about 5 common mistakes made in HA recovery. And while I am going to get to the 5 key points, I also want you to know that I put my hand up and say I made pretty much every one of these mistakes as well. So if you're listening to this going, oh my goodness, I do this and I do this and I do this, a huge part of this whole experience is going about things, I guess, less than optimal way, and then realizing that you're doing it, and then you implement some changes, and then perhaps you go backwards, and then you go forwards, and then you go backwards, and then you go forwards, and then boom, you've got your period back. So anything I say here, please don't feel disheartened by it. It's very much coming from a place of love and care, and know that you are absolutely not alone if you are making these decisions or these choices or having these realizations, because like I said, it's something that we have all done, definitely myself included, in the past. All right, so number 1 is your daily goals don't match your HA recovery goals. So often this is one of the trickiest ones, because if you're looking at someone who has had a weight loss goal to compete in a bodybuilding show, perhaps weight loss has helped with a triathlon meet or some kind of endurance event, then they have had to put all of these particular protocols in place in order to achieve that goal. And during that process, they have become very positive reinforcements, because they perhaps led to body composition changing. They led to an athletic performance achievement. They led to a weight loss goal. They led to increased confidence, right? So it's important to know that these things, especially if they've been practiced and repeated for quite a long period of time, are going to be a little bit shaky to change and move, which is where you've just got to be more strategic with it. So a big focus on what I do with women on one-on-one coaching is to break down sort of where they are at with their different eating, training, and day-to-day behaviors, and how to slowly tweak little individual things so that they have the confidence that they can actually make change, versus going, oh my gosh, I just can't do this. Like I don't want to make any changes, and I don't like what it feels like. So a key element of enjoying changes is changing what makes you feel good about decisions. So as an example, if you are getting ready for a bodybuilding competition and you're jumping up on stage, your daily goals might look like weighing and measuring your food, eating every 3 hours, doing an hour of cardio in the morning, doing an hour of resistance training at night, adhering to calorie restriction, and training 6 days a week. Right. So for a very long time, doing all those things has made you feel on top of the world, or made you feel really good or empowered or confident. But now that you have a HA recovery goal, you continuing to feel good about those tasks won't actually get your period back, right? Those tasks were helpful for you to get on stage, but then they're counterintuitive to your HA recovery goal. So you need to start thinking about, well, at the moment, I feel really good about achieving all these things during the day, but I know they're not helpful for my HA recovery goal. So what things do I actually need to do each day in order to be on track for my HA recovery goal? For some, it can be quite helpful to make that a visual thing, like you might have pictures or particular prompts or audios to help you get there, because in the initial stages, one, it's important to recognize the behaviors you need to start implementing. And that could be the smallest of thing, where you're at the moment, you're doing an hour of cardio and an hour of weights training every day, and you reduce your cardio, or you reduce your weights training, or you reduce both a little bit, right? Whatever that looks like for you, that could be your starting point. And rather than going, oh my gosh, I only did 30 minutes of cardio and I should have done 60, the reason you feel bad about it is because you're attaching it to your old goal, which was to get on stage, where your new goal is HA recovery. So now it's about having that conversation or negotiation with yourself of, okay, well, walking 1 hour in the morning or doing an hour of cardio helped me get to my old goal. It actually doesn't help me achieve my new one. So I really shouldn't be celebrating when I achieve that. I should be celebrating when I do a little bit less, or I reduce intensity, or gosh, even if you were to have a rest day, that's probably an ultimate celebration, right? So you want to be rehearsing and practicing, feeling good about the decisions that honor your HA recovery goal. When it comes in terms of food, it could be rather than celebrating prepping every single meal perfectly and eating the exact same thing, rinse and repeat every day, you're celebrating the fact that you added in a snack. Perhaps you're celebrating that you had some salad dressing on your salad. Perhaps you're celebrating that you tried a fear food, right? So, or even let's say processed food. In comp prep, you cannot eat cake, right? It's not in a diet adherence or calorie plan, so you just can't do it. So if you're trying to drop weight and make stage, then you know what, it's not going to be a success if you eat cake, because it's not going to help you get on stage. But if you are in HA recovery and you're working on food fears, actually having cake is really, really helpful to you. If you are trying to increase your calorie intake, having some cake is actually really helpful to that goal, right? So it's about redirecting what your daily tasks are to complement your new goal versus being stuck in daily tasks that complement a past goal. One thing that always helped me through my HA recovery, especially when I was having some rough times, is knowing that the discipline that caused my HA is also the discipline that will get me out. All right, because the reason I got HA in the first place was because I was overtraining, over dieting, and overall just doing too much. And even though I loved it, I wanted to do it, it was a very disciplinary practice, right? Because it wasn't coming from a place of freedom where I'm like, I just feel like training today. I had to train. Like that was the rules for the day. But knowing that the discipline of reducing my training, the discipline of eating more, the discipline to rest, learning to be disciplined was actually what was going to help me achieve my HA recovery goal. Because when I actually was thinking about discipline, the discipline that I once needed was no longer really discipline, it was habitual, right? Because it was just on autopilot. So discipline is a conscious effort to do something. Step number 2 is spending more time reading about HA than putting your steps into action. So again, guilty of this one too. And if you're grinning as you listen or watch me talk about this one, again, it's completely okay. But the core of this one is you're listening to all the podcasts, you're in all the Facebook groups, you're reading No Period Now What, you're perhaps reading The Fifth Vital Sign and taking charge of your fertility. Like your HA literacy is through the roof, but you haven't changed one behavior since you've been doing all this learning. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much you know, you need to be putting into practice these steps if you want to get your period back. Obviously, education is an incredible tool because you need to know what to do in order to get your period back in order to take the appropriate steps. But action overall takes priority when it comes to getting your period back. I really encourage the ladies that I work with, and you as well, to become literate also in efficient training protocols, efficient fueling, efficient rest and recovery. Those of you who know me well would know I just absolutely adore Dr. Stacey Sims, and I do so many of her courses and pretty much watch every single YouTube podcast that comes out because she's empowering women to make decisions that allow for optimal athletic performance, that allow for those physical adaptations that we want. And I find that the more women can understand what their body needs in order to perform the way they want it to perform, in order to look the way they want it to look, they really need the science of it, because otherwise we can sometimes feel like we're being tricked. I know for me in the early stages of HA recovery and my eating disorder recovery too, any idea that I should eat more, I thought someone was just trying to make me fat. I thought they were trying to sabotage everything that I'd worked so hard to achieve. I was completely blinded by the fact that fueling more would help my body. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know plenty of women feel the same. So education on why you need to fuel more is really, really helpful. And especially when it's coming from sources that you trust, because you're going to be able to lean into that information a lot more than perhaps someone saying it to you who you get really defensive and go, well, what would you know? Because that's a very real thing that can happen. Number 3, and this is a big one because it's super, super common, is listening to the advice of people who don't know or understand what HA is. So more often than not, people, especially when you think of family and friends, have got no idea what HA is. They just look at your lifestyle and go, well, you train all the time, you diet, you look good, you look well. So clearly there's nothing wrong with you. Exercise is good for you, and eating clean all the time is really good for you. So I don't see why you should be tweaking any of that. Clearly you've got the healthy thing down pat. It's a really common conversation that comes up with people. And it's important to not be pushed away from the steps required to recover from HA, because people who don't know anything about it think it doesn't make sense. Because as you would know, especially if you've been doing all the research, it makes a lot of sense why our period has stopped. Essentially, we don't have the capacity to grow a child because we're so undernourished and overworked and overstressed. So it's a protection mechanism. Some medical practitioners as well, and again, all medical advice is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it's absolutely something that should be pursued when on any kind of health endeavor, whether it be physical health, mental health, even spiritual health. But it is important to pick a team who knows where you're at and how to heal from it. So don't be afraid to ask practitioners or nutritionists, naturopaths, acupuncturists, whoever you're working with, what they know about HA, and see if they know as much as you know, and if perhaps they're the appropriate person for you to be working with. If they don't know anything about it, you could see if they're willing to research it, right? Because some people want to grow their wealth of knowledge, and that's a wonderful thing. But you really do want to make sure you've got a team of people who understand it, because otherwise you could be following the advice of someone whose intentions are absolutely to help, but they're still not going to get you to the point that achieves the return of your period or that optimal health or relationship with food that you are seeking. Number 4 is not trying due to fear of failure. So often we can get spooked by the idea of what happens if I stop the training, I eat the food, I gain weight, and then no period. Like, that seems absolutely awful. I'd much rather be training, dieting, and have no period than not have that and still not have a period. It's important to remember that unless you've got other substantial issues going on, that the success rate for HA recovery is actually a really, really good success rate. Obviously, there's other things that come into play with having a missing period that would depend on sort of personal circumstances and blood work and mental stresses and things like that. So the reason I jump into that is because you've got women who've got HA because they're overtraining, under eating. You've got some women who have got HA because they're only under eating. You've got some that have HA because their emotional stress is just through the roof. And we do know that HA can happen in all shapes and sizes of bodies. So back when I had HA, which was, like 10 years ago now, it was very much only athletes have HA, only low body fat percentage have HA. And it was a positive thing. It was like, yes, you're nailing your training if you've got a missing period. But we know so much more than that. So it's important to remember and remind yourself that if your HA is induced for the reasons that we know HA is caused, that there is a very high success rate if you are working on the causes of it to relieve the symptoms of it. Something to think about is, time is going to pass anyway. So 1 year from now, do you want to know that you've tried your best to get it back, and perhaps you indeed do have it back? Because once you've got that momentum of making all the right changes, things happen really, really quick. Or do you want to be a year from now and feeling like you failed anyway because you never tried? Because that's a weird conundrum about fear of failure, is that even though the fear of failure prevents us from trying in the first place, it ends up leaving us with regret, and often regret hurts more than failure. Because if we fail at something, we learn and we'll probably succeed the next time, right? Or we'll have a much better chance at succeeding. But if we never try at all, we've never given ourselves the opportunity to succeed, and that hurts. That's something that really eats up at us because we've had no feedback. We don't know why it hasn't worked because we never tried it in the first place. So always something to consider is, would I rather try, fail, try again, succeed, or would I rather live with regret? It's a big question, and definitely something worth giving yourself time and space to think about, perhaps even journal about. Number 5 is becoming obsessed with everyone else's journey instead of focusing on your own. So again, 5 out of 5, guilty, ladies. This one comes in the shape and form of, but so-and-so kept training 4 days and so-and-so was still running and so-and-so kept her calories the same, so-and-so doubled her calories, so-and-so took 4 weeks, so-and-so took 6 months, so-and-so took 2 years. She's only 25, I'm 32, she's only 28, I'm 40. There's so many things we can sit there, and especially, the blessing and a curse of the internet is we can have access to so many individual unique stories that it can actually put like a halt to our success because we're so caught up in everyone else instead of just focusing on ourselves. So if you're looking at different HA recovery journeys and it's inspiring you to make change, fantastic. That's wonderful, right? If you're hearing someone goes, I've started eating breakfast and that's helped me feel really good and I feel more efficient at work, I've got more mental clarity, I just feel like myself again, listen to those journeys if they're going to help you move forward. But if you're reading all of these different experiences and all it's doing is making you go, oh my God, I just don't know what to do anymore, well, it's actually stopping you from succeeding. So take a step back, remove yourself from all of the stories and go back to your first list of, what do I need to do in order to get my period back? And not saying that you need to nail absolutely everything on the list, but start chipping away at the list of things that you've got. So you might know that there's 10 things that you need to work on, but not working on any of those 10 doesn't help. Working on one of 10 does. So you might just start there. And then when you feel like, I wouldn't mind reading a few HA recovery journeys, I could do with some inspo, tap back into it and read some HA recovery journeys. Half the reason I started this podcast was to share journeys of women's HA recovery to inspire you to recover your period. The podcast has always been very much a passion project, and that's why, because I believe that our experiences help build more women up to have the courage to recover, and then their courage inspires more women to have courage, and it's this beautiful knock-on effect. Right. And when you think about how many women are recovering for their own health, or they're recovering because they want to have children, even the knock-on effect of we can heal and then become the role models of younger women to not go through what we went through because we all know better. Right. I just think it's the most magical thing that we can actually be the generations that stop younger generations from making the mistakes that we did. And I know it's it's never going to completely go away because diet culture is a real thing. Sporting performance, not understanding periods, women's health, it happens. But imagine if our experience helped shape someone else's experience, which prevented them from going through what we have. I think that's just the coolest thing ever. And also knowing we're living a better life for it. Because obviously the tail end of HA is you actually feel so much better for it. And this isn't one of the things I was going to talk about, but I feel like it's led there anyways. I will never forget when I started HA recovery, I felt like I had to sacrifice everything I'd worked so hard for. I felt like there was no chance I could ever be happy living a life where I wasn't training twice a day. I wasn't really lean. I wasn't seen as a fit spirit. It was very real. And it was really scary to think that I had to change that to the point where many, many times it made me want to run away from it because it can't be true. How could it possibly be that I need to be so everything I love has to be taken away in order to heal? And then on the other side of it, I realized nothing was actually taken away at all. I was just given this whole new lease on life that I had no idea existed because I was so caught up in an old identity. And again, as you guys will know, when I had HA, I loved the amount of training I was doing. I really enjoyed the dieting. Though when I was bulimic, that was a completely awful time of my life, and awful. There is zero fond memories of those experiences. But every other chapter, I actually had a great time. I felt like I'd found my purpose in life and I had the identity I always wanted. But now I sit here as the person I am today, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But it's just not knowledge I could have had until I lived it first, right? I don't get me wrong, I look back at my old photos and sometimes I'm like, wow, I was shredded. And it was really cool to be that lean. But I don't for a second miss the lifestyle it took to achieve that. Like I wouldn't swap the balance for anything in the world. I wouldn't swap Casima for anything in the world. I wouldn't swap how my relationships changed and evolved for anything in the world. So I really hope that if you're embarking on this HA recovery journey, or if you're in the midst of it and everything feels like such a big sacrifice, that on the other side of it, you are just going to feel like you have gained so much. And unfortunately, it's just not something we can really feel or experience until we're there. So please don't give up on yourself, because I promise you will not regret committing to this journey and recovering your cycle, recovering a beautiful relationship with food, and most of all, recovering a relationship with yourself where you love yourself for more than just your behaviors. You love yourself for the person who you are. You love yourself for how you show up in the world. I don't think there's anything better than that. So I think that's enough for today's podcast. As some of you might know, I am pregnant. Perhaps that's why I'm emotional, but I get emotional anyway, so let's not blame it on that. I will be talking about cycle syncing in the future, because that was a key part of me on my fertility journey second time around, and also making sure that my period stayed in tip-top form. As you both guys know, I love training, and none of that has changed over this whole period of time. And I really look forward to teaching you how to cycle sync as well. But for now, if you've enjoyed the episodes, please subscribe, comment, follow along. It really helps the channel. And I also love hearing from you. But bye for now.